Hey everybody, hope you're doing good today on the Morning Devo with Bo. It is December 27th, so it's the second day after Christmas, and hopefully you are still maybe chilling out a little bit. Probably like a lot of us, we all have a little bit of work to do, right? Kind of got to get back at it. And, emails to check, things to do, things to be paid, all kinds of stuff. And so nothing ever just stops, does it? It just doesn't stop. But it's good to have those little reprieves here and there. So Daniel chapter 11 today. You can always check out the archives at my YouTube channel at Bo Willette. The arm's getting a little better. Thank God for that. That scapula and those 7 ribs are healing up. It's going to take some time, though, probably a good another month, actually, to get this thing really, really back to normal. But anyway, you could always check out the archives at my YouTube channel. Almost got the whole Bible going. Working my way through it. Now Daniel chapter 11. Again, I grew up in Southern California. Very progressive kids, very secular, and very atheistic, too. Really not much thought about God. In my life, certainly the Bible wasn't a book that I picked up and knew anything really about. It wasn't until my later teenage years that I actually picked it up, and it was really through a lot of music, reggae, heavy metal culture, stuff like that really influenced me to think about spiritual things, actually. So anyway, let's get into it. Daniel chapter 11 is a big chapter, so I'm going to read through it. Have a sip of my Joe. Woke up with a scratchy throat today, but the weather's a little weird out here, so I'm thinking it's probably weather. Because other than that, I feel good. It says, "Now then, I will reveal the truth to you. 3 more Persian kings will reign to be succeeded by a 4th. Far richer than the others, he will use his wealth to stir up everyone to fight against the kingdom of Greece." Okay, so we're definitely in a prophecy, an interpretation of this vision that Daniel has. And it says, "Then a mighty king will rise to power who will rule with great authority and accomplish everything he sets to do. But at the height of his power, his kingdom will be broken apart and divided into 4 parts. It will not be ruled by the king's descendants, nor will the kingdom hold the authority it once had, for his empire will be uprooted and given to others." So this is breaking down empires, things that are going to come in the future, obviously. And we got the Persian Empire here mentioned. We got the kingdom of Greece with Alexander the Great being the strong person, his kingdom breaking up into 4 different generals. And we'll see kind of where the emphasis of this chapter goes. It's pretty specific. So hold on to your I guess, what is it? Hold on to your hats, is it? Is that how it goes? But anyway, okay, let's read through it. So it says, let's see, "It will not be ruled by the king's descendants, nor will the kingdom hold the authority it once had, for his empire will be uprooted and given to others. The king of the south will increase in power, but one of his own officials will become more powerful than he and will rule his kingdom with great strength. Some years later, an alliance will be formed between the king of the north and the king of the south. The daughter of the king of the south will be given in marriage to the king of the north to secure an alliance. But she will lose her influence over him, and so will her father. She will be abandoned along with her supporters. But when one of her relatives becomes king of the south, he will raise an army and enter the fortress of the king of the north and defeat him. When he returns to Egypt, he will carry back their idols with him, along with priceless articles of gold and silver. For some years afterward, he will leave the king of the north alone. Later, the king of the north will invade the realm of the king of the south, but will soon return to his own land. However, the sons of the king of the north will assemble a mighty army that will advance like a flood and carry the battle as far as the enemy's fortress. When in a rage, the king of the south will rally against the vast forces assembled by the king of the north and will defeat him." Man, these north and south people, they're going at it all the time. It kind of reminds me of something too, is that us human beings, man, we tend to fight one another quite a bit. We don't tend to have a lot of peace in our life. We tend to be in conflict quite a bit. Many times, even in family life, there's conflict, right? There's not a lot of peace. I don't know. We just struggle, it seems like, as human beings to be able to get along. It seems like when we talk, we don't really talk well. We don't know how to use our mouths well. It seems like we're always using choice words and putting people down. And, there's a lot of hurt and envy and jealousies and, just all this stuff, pride that's all within us that really, really tends to come out And I see that the king of the south and the king of the north. So this is talking about, of course, Greece. And Greece breaks up into 4 parts. And then you have a northern area and a southern area with different generals, and they're going at it with each other. And there's some really detail with the marriage and different things like that. I mean, it's really interesting and something for us to actually look up in a Bible study. Go through some history and kind of see if Daniel really was on the right page. I think you'll be blown away when you do. And you'll be like, wow, this is really, really on point. So the idea is that God lives out of time, matter, and space. God knows the end from the beginning, and he reveals these hidden things, if you will, to us. And, it's funny how you think we would be able to take it, right? Like we would be like, oh yeah, why doesn't God just reveal everything to us? Unfortunately, we don't do good even when God reveals anything to us. It's not like we get better. If God reveals something to us, we still struggle. We still have all of our issues. We still mess up. We still, we still don't believe. We still have unbelief in our heart, all kinds of things, right? So, don't get on God because he hasn't revealed everything to you. Daniel gets these revelations, these very intense revealings, and he's sick and kind of bummed and doesn't quite get it all because it's all for a future time. And but it's all important to Israel. It's very important to the Hebrew nation, for sure. And then it says, okay, so let's go to verse 13. It says, a few years later, the king of the north will return with a fury fully equipped with a fully equipped army far greater than before. And at that time there will be a general uprising against the king of the south. Violent men among your own people will join them in fulfillment of this vision, but they will not succeed. Then the king of the north will come and lay siege to a fortified city and capture it. The best troops of the south will not be able to stand in the face of the onslaught. The king of the north will march onward, unopposed. None will be able to stop him. He will pause in the glorious land of Israel. Okay, so we see the focus. And when these empires that Daniel gets revelation of, again, the reason why is because of Israel, right? That's the context. It's concerning Israel, Jerusalem, and the temple. And those are always the big topics. So when you're studying the book of Revelation, don't pull out Israel, don't pull out Jerusalem, don't pull out the temple and just symbolize everything. Oh, Israel's the church, and Jerusalem's, L.A., and, the temple is, something else. Don't go those directions. All this prophecy literature is talking about literal Israel, literal Jerusalem, literal temple. Israel really had a temple, and it was destroyed by Babylon. So this is all literal things. So to symbolize it at some point would be really weird, unless it says it's a symbol. So that just helps you maybe interpret sometimes, this kind of literature. So anyway, it says, verse 16, the king of the north will march onward unopposed. None will be able to stop him. He will pause in the glory land of Israel, intent on destroying it. Yikes. And he will make plans to come with the might of his entire kingdom, and will form an alliance with the king of the south. And he will give them a daughter in marriage in order to overthrow the kingdom from within. But his plan will fail. After this, he will turn his attention to the coastland and conquer many cities. But a commander from another land will put an end to this insolence and cause him to retreat in shame. He will take refuge in his own fortress, but will stumble and fall and be seen no more. His successor will send out a tax collector to maintain the royal splendor, but after a very brief reign he will die, though not from anger or in battle. The next to come to power will be a despicable man who is not in line for royal succession. He will slip in when least expected and take over the kingdom by flattery and intrigue. Before him, great armies will be swept away, including a covenant prince. With deceitful promises, he will make various alliances. He will become strong despite having only a handful of followers. Without warning, he will enter the richest areas of the land. Then he will distribute among his followers the plunder and wealth of the rich, something his predecessors had never done. He will plot the overthrow of strongholds, but this will last for only a short while. Then he will stir up his courage and raise a great army against the king of the south. The king of the south will go to battle with a mighty army, but to no avail, for there will be plots against him. His own household will cause his downfall. His army will be swept away, and many will be killed, seeking nothing but each other's harm. These kings will plot against each other at the conference table, attempting to deceive each other. But it will make no difference, for the end will come at the appointed time. The king of the north will then return home with great riches. On the way, he will set himself against the people of the Holy Covenant. Okay, so the people of the Holy Covenant is who? Israel. So that's another kind of title for Israel, people of the Holy Covenant. It says, doing much damage before continuing his journey. Then at the appointed time, he will once again invade the south, but this time the result will be different. For warships from western coastlands will scare him off, and he will withdraw and return home. But he will vent his anger against the people of the Holy Covenant and reward those who forsake the covenant. Okay, so we know, from that area that there's going to be this turmoil during the time of the reign of, it's after the reign of Alexander the Great. And there's going to become this one guy who's really just bent against Israel. And he's going to try to persuade some of the Hebrews to, if you will, leave kind of their allegiance to Yahweh and kind of join him against their own people. And so you kind of get the idea that Daniel's getting this, and you can see why Daniel's not feeling good about it, right? Because the message is pretty bleak. Could you imagine getting a message like you just want to go home? You just want to get back to Jerusalem, at some point. And what you're getting is a breakdown of kings and empires, and of course this is meaning that there's going to be turmoil and war and kind of inner factions within Israel, and Israel's not going to be doing well as a nation, and that's what you're getting. And it would be really tough pill to swallow, that's for sure, to get this kind of message. You think about it, if you knew, if someone gave you the breakdown of, your life when you were 16 years old, and they said, hey, I'm going to tell you your what's going to happen in the future. And it's boom, boom, and this hardship and that, and then you're going to go through this, and then you're going to go through that. It'd be overwhelming and scary, because life is so risky, and it is so scary and unpredictable. And, to know the future, that's tough. What we do as Christians is we hold on to the hope of the future resurrection, right? That one day things will be restored. God has a future and a hope for us. And we definitely focus on that because, getting there, man, there's some challenges for sure. So Israel's going to really go through a lot, right? Some of their own people will forsake Israel. So it says his army will take over the temple fortress. There's the temple. And it says, pollute the sanctuary, put a stop to the daily sacrifices, and set up the sacrilegious objects that cause desecration. He will flatter and win over those who have violated the covenant, but the people who know their God will be strong and will resist them. So there's going to be a strong group of people that are going to go against this person. And you're going to see that this person is going to do something horrible in the temple. And so we've seen this theme now in some of the visions that Daniel has, is that the temple will be rebuilt and it will be desecrated. And this seems to be something that's going to happen more than once. Now, again, you should study history. There is a guy in history, Antiochus Epiphanes, who this really lines up well with. And you do good to really kind of learn more about this guy, who is very much like a type of Antichrist again. Someone who goes against the Jewish people, goes into the temple, desecrates the temple, does something horrible to it, that kind of thing, goes after the Hebrew people, and goes on a killing spree, if you will. And this is something that Jesus really honed in on, again in Matthew 24, where he says, when you see the abomination of desolation that Daniel speaks of, that's that desecration thing, that sacrilegious thing, that going into the temple, right, polluting the sanctuary. This is what Jesus said would happen in the future. Wow, really interesting, right? So there's a lot of really cool studies here to go into, for sure. I find that there's some application to it in my life as well. When I just think of, there is people that are just, they are so bent on killing. And, it just, doesn't it bother you? And I know it bothers me. It kind of freaks me out to think that people would, kill you. Not just kill you, but torture you. And find pleasure in that. But unfortunately, us human beings are amazingly depraved and lost. And there's no doubt that when you take a hard look at us humans, we just haven't done a good job of, treating people right. And you think of Israel, and you think of how many times they've gone through an incredible persecution. And Yahweh tells them the whole time that they're going to go through it because they're stiff-necked and stubborn, and they won't listen. They won't turn to Yahweh. And they keep going through these disciplinary actions, if you will. And boy, it is tough it's a tough pill to swallow. Sometimes when we understand our own depravity, it can be a tough thing to get. When you go up to people and you say, hey, guess what? You're far worse than you think you are. That's not a message most of us human beings want to hear. The Bible does have a tough pill to swallow, right? There's no one righteous, no, not one. Each has gone their own way. We've all gone astray. And, that is so true when I look at the world. I don't see a world that we all do great. I don't see a world where we all have great motivations. I see a lot of mess, a lot of defects, a lot of distortions, if you will. And it seems like if, we tend to go against God, like Antiochus Epiphanes, who was bent on against Yahweh, we tend to be that way, where we tend to even fight the deity. So it says, wise leaders will give instruction to many, but these teachers will die by fire and sword, and they will be jailed and robbed. During these persecutions, little help will arrive, and many who join them will not be sincere. And some of the wise will fall victim to persecution. In this way they will be refined and cleansed and made pure until the time of the end, for the appointed time is still to come. So there's going to be a group of Jewish people that will resist Antiochus Epiphanes, and you might want to study and again, look that up. If you've ever heard of the family name the Maccabees, that might be something very interesting. The Maccabean Revolt. Things like that might be very good for you to look up and to kind of do some study. Again, this is such a detailed chapter that, wow. I mean, talk about, hey, the Bible is so, the prophecies in the Bible, have you ever heard someone say, they're so non-specific. Anybody could do them? This isn't non-specific. This is specific, right? So, this might be too specific for us, right? We're like, whoa. And so it says, the king will do as he pleases, exalting himself and claiming to be greater than even or every god, even blaspheming the God of gods. He will succeed, but only until the time of wrath is completed. For what has been determined will surely take place. He will have no respect for the gods of his ancestors, or the God loved by women, or any other god, for he will boast that he is the greatest of them all. Instead of these, he will worship the god of fortresses, a god his ancestors never knew, and lavish on him gold, silver, precious stones, and expensive gifts. Claiming this foreign god's help, he will attack the strongest fortresses, and he will honor those who submit to him, appointing them to positions of authority and deriving the land among them as their reward. Wow, it seems to, again, be a prophecy that kind of teleports us into this kind of Antichrist picture. Someone who is, definitely, against God, blasphemes God, and is bent on war and submission. Wow. There's some religions that are just bent on war and submission, and those are popular themes of the religion. I wonder if that has a part to play in all this. Ooh, something to study, right? It says, then at the time of the end, the king of the south will attack the king of the north. The king of the north will storm out with chariots, charioteers, and a vast navy. He will invade various lands and sweep through them like a flood. He will enter the glorious land of Israel, and many nations will fall, but Moab, Edom, and the best part of Ammon will escape. He will conquer many countries, and even Egypt will not escape. He will gain control over the gold, silver, and treasures of Egypt, and the Libyans and Ethiopians will be his servants. But then news from the east and the north will alarm him, and he will send out in great anger to destroy and obliterate many. And he will stop between the glorious holy mountain and the sea, and will pitch his royal tents. But while he is there, his time will suddenly run out, and no one will help him. Okay, man, that's intense. So a lot of breaking down of history. Our history, it's behind us, but in Daniel, it was a future. And, one of those things, that, we could take to the bank, that is that when the Bible speaks of even future tense stuff from us, there's going to be a mixed emotion about it, where there's going to be times where we're going to be like, oh yeah, we want the Lord to come. And then there's going to be other times where we're going to be kind of sick to our stomach with the amount of destruction that happens. Well, we're in good company with those emotions, because that's how Daniel felt, pretty sick to his stomach with everything that he saw in the future. I can't, we sometimes we get this idea of the end times as being like, oh, this is going to be great. And we're going to find, like in books like Amos and different books, that, it says, woe to you who desire the day of the Lord, for it will not be light, but days of darkness. Yeah, it'll be time of wrath, and it will be a time of purifying Israel like no other. And but it's going to be through a lot of pain and a lot of destruction. people will get their Messiah, but it looks like from this passage, people tend to heap up leaders that really aren't that good. Meaning we tend to put leaders in power that really aren't for our good, but actually lead us astray. And it seems like there's a lot of leadership in this passage that isn't helping people, but really just creating so much turmoil. Isn't that just the story of the world, though? Wars and rumors of wars and leadership that wants more money and power, and people will do whatever it takes to get it. It's just unbelievable. So Israel is going to go through more stuff, and that's really the name of the game, I think, in Daniel 11, when you just kind of chip away at it. We're going to see how Daniel responds and finish up the book next week, and then we'll be able to move on to Hosea. But a very interesting book, very powerful book. These kind of chapters are cool because they help us just go like, man, you know what? God does know all this stuff, and he can break it down so specifically. Do we really want to know it? That's another thing. And what is important about it? Well, it's important for us to understand that God is sovereign, and that the deity does know what's going on. Nothing gets by, and that should give us some kind of understanding or some comfort, just to know that, hey, it's not like it's out of control to God. I mean, he knows what's going on, and he's got a purpose and a plan for it, as we see as the Bible develops. So anyway, you guys I'm going to think about, kind of the sovereignty of God today, and that God is in control. I'm going to think that, hey, God is broken down what's going to happen in the future, and I should know about it. I mean, I shouldn't stray away from prophetic literature, but delve into it, because it's going to shore up my faith and strengthen it, and go, man, my God knows the end of what's going to happen, and he already lays it out. And that gives me great confidence to know that, he's got me too, and he's going to take care of me, and he'll be able to raise me and save me. And he's got a future for me too. Great promises for me as well. Jesus said, because I live, you will live also. Don't let your heart be troubled. He said, you believe in God, believe also in me, right? So he said, hey, you trusted me just as you trust God. Wow. Radical. So Jesus definitely has a plan for you and me. So cool chapter, neat chapter, very intense. Maybe get a book again on the book, Enduring Word. Go to enduringword.com and look up the book of Daniel and look up this chapter and read through it. See if you can grab some really cool history of how these wonderful prophecies, or intense prophecies, I should say, are fulfilled. Okay? We'll talk to you later.